Dish Network knows the importance of having a reliable television provider. That's why Dish puts reliability first, with 99% signal reliability anywhere in the country, including rural America. So you can watch your teams, news, and favorite shows without being interrupted, no matter where you live. Get 99% signal reliability with Dish. Call 1-844-CALL-DISH. Visit dish.com or find a retailer near you to sign up today. 99% reliability based on data from set-top boxes.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Maroon Friday edition of the Yard, kids. That's right, it's the weekend. Hopefully it's a payday for you today, too. You get a chance to get out and go do some cool things with your friends and family. That's always great. That's why we work, right? Well, that, in fact, we need to eat and have somewhere to lay our heads. But you understand what I'm saying. You got to get out and enjoy life a little bit. I want to thank everybody that came out to the two signings in Louisville on Wednesday and the two signings in West Point on Thursday. It's always great to see everybody. It's good to congregate together as people who are similarly situated as us. Great time. And Saturday, I will be at Campus Book Mart. So if you're coming to town for baseball, we're going to talk a lot of baseball today. As a matter of fact, it's mainly a baseball show today. You can check us out at Campus Book Mart tomorrow. Pretty excited about that. You should be as well. It's always a great time to get together. If you're looking to get Dogpile books, you can get them. They have all 5 of my books at Campus Book Mart. So whether you make it to town or not, you can order them online from them. And while we're talking about that too, I was informed by the publisher on Wednesday that I actually misspoke. They do have some inventory left of Dogpile. Not much, about 100 copies, a little less than 100 copies. And as it stands today, let me see if I can remember all this correctly. You got about 300 copies of Flim Flam available for purchase through the website. You got about 200 copies of Alpha Dogs, less than 100 of Stark Villains, and then right at 100 of Dogpile. Now, the only printings that we're going to do the rest of this year are going to be Dogpile. So if you have neglected to get Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, or Flim Flam, you need to go ahead and act pretty soon. Again, that's at dogpilethebook.com. While you're there, maybe if you know a turkey hunter in your life, pick up the turkey hunting book too. Not my book, but it's someone that is a very, 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 very important person in Mississippi State's history. Was a professor emeritus, a naturalist of sorts, and wrote his memoirs. And sadly, he died before the book was published. And so we're trying to help his family and his widow get those books out into the hands of people. But yeah, you can go to turkeyhuntingbook.com or you can just go to dogpilethebook.com, but all leads the same place. You can get those things taken care of. Chris Jans also introduced to the Mississippi State family. Had a chance to watch that. I was impressed with Coach Jans. And I knew what to expect from him as a basketball coach. I thought he handled himself really well. I wasn't really happy that the fact that the question gets asked about the incident at Bowling Green. At what point do we move on from that? He was vetted by Wichita State. They found no issues. He was vetted by New Mexico State. They found no issues. We vetted him and hired him. I don't understand. I think there's some agenda-driven journalism out there at times. It's like, well, let's go ask the most inappropriate question to get the most clicks we can possibly get. I don't support it. I understand there's a time that you ask that question. That time was asked when he's hired at New Mexico State. Mike Leach was hired here, and we just had Mike Leach show up and we had a press conference. It wasn't a situation where it's like, oh, let's go dig up as much dirt or perceived dirt as we can possibly find. The reality of it is Chris Jans is involved in an unfortunate situation. It was an isolated incident by all accounts, and it was handled. It cost a man his job. Why does he have to serve a life sentence for it? That's what I don't understand. And I don't understand why we have to, well, let's just keep talking about it. Well, how do we ever move forward in life if we just keep talking about those things? If it's already been addressed, I could understand at no point had it ever come up, and he never had a chance to make a public comment about it. I would fully understand and appreciate it. I don't respect the question. I don't respect the agenda behind it. And that may hurt some feelings, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I can live with that. I can promise you. But I think it's absolutely silly. As somebody that got into a world of trouble back in 1991 and 92, I can tell you that there are still people 30 years later that want to kind of throw that up in your face. And I don't think it's fair. I've kind of learned to live with that. especially when you're maybe as controversial as I can be at times. But the reality of it is I think it's foolhardy for people to continue to mention that, and I absolutely have no respect for any of that whatsoever. I don't think that's a time and a place for it. That time and place is already passed. I look forward to a great time with Chris Jans, and once again, I commend Director of Athletics John Cohen for coming through and really hitting 2 home runs, I believe, on these coaching searches. And I don't know that John's getting enough credit for that. One thing I will say, though, there are some people that have been very critical of John that have come out and said, hey, listen, I didn't expect it to go as well as it did with this hiring search, but it did go well, and I think ultimately the proof is in the pudding, and I think Sam Purcell and Chris Jans are going to win a lot of basketball games here at Mississippi State. I think the Humphrey Coliseum is going to once again roar back to life, and I think we're going to look back and say, you know what, John did a great job here. I believe right now we can say John did a great job, and I would venture to say probably the 2 best hires in the SEC. LSU getting Matt McMahon from Murray State, and Mississippi State getting Chris Jans. And I actually feel like Chris Jans is a better fit for us. I would have been happy with McMahon. I think Chris Jans, though, is kind of the Mississippi State story. I think in some respects he's a bit of an underdog. And then, of course, Matt McMahon's a guy that probably got overpaid to go to LSU because of these pending sanctions. And you know what? Hey, good for Scott Woodard for getting that contract done. But I think we can feel really good about the job that has been done to find these 2 coaches to lead Mississippi State basketball into a new era. I'm excited, and really for the first time in a long time, really excited about both sides of things. I know the last couple of years we've kind of endured, women's basketball season. We had higher hopes on the men's side here the last couple of years, and this year, women's basketball, again, tip of the cap, Doug Novak, doing a great job under very difficult circumstances. But at the end of the day, I think you have to look at the recruiting aspect of it. And as I've mentioned before to you guys, there is not an AAU women's basketball coach in America that doesn't know who Sam Purcell is. 0. I don't think Doug Novak has that same notoriety among those circles. That's not in any way a shot at Doug Novak. That's just the reality of the situation. I've had somebody recently tell me Doug Novak actually getting some interest from Delta State. I think that would be great. I'd love to see that happen. I think Doug deserves to be a head coach somewhere. And I think Delta State would do really well to have a guy like him. Probably usher in, a new era of basketball there as well. So, Doug, we're rooting for you. We are. And we appreciate your contributions to Mississippi State athletics. Again, it is a baseball show today. We're going to be very, very baseball heavy. So if you like college baseball, you picked a good day to listen. Let's take some time now to thank our good friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I love Bulldog Burger Company. You will too. Many of you are already raving fans of that fine establishment. Began right here in Stark Vegas on University Drive, expanded to Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and now Lake Harbor Drive there in the Richland-Flowood area. Be sure and go check them out. You'll be glad you did. Have the spring rolls for your appetizer. They will make you and everybody around you better looking. I submit to you there is not a better advertiser in Starkville proper than those spring rolls. Have the pimentology, add bacon, get the smokehouse, get the Bryant, whatever you'd like. There's a burger for everybody. No matter what you like, what you kind of fancy, they can take care of you there. And maybe you don't want to eat that heavy. Maybe, Steve, I went to Bulldog Burger Company because the kids wanted that, but I don't want to eat that heavy. Well, have that great BLT sandwich. You'll be glad you did. I always get it grilled. You may like it fried. I don't judge. You eat it however you want to eat it. But if you can finish it, you might be a better man than me. I can't. The portions are so substantial. I always leave a little something behind. I just do. And that's not that I'm ungrateful. It's just I get full and I don't want to overeat. You get your money's worth at Bulldog Burger Company. I guarantee you that. Great service with a smile, great food, great products, great atmosphere. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. All right. A lot's happened since we spoke. We had the Wednesday preview of Southern baseball. Now, the first thing that I will tell you about that game, the reason that I was really excited about the game is we have had situations this year when we have struggled to hit the soft-tossing junk ball left-hander. That's exactly what we got with Christian Paul. And we rocked him. We did. You remember the Grand Point State game, similar situation, similar pitching strategy against Mississippi State. We managed just 2 runs, very fortunate to win the game, but we did. We have scored 45 runs in the past 3 games. I mentioned earlier this year it's going to be very offensive in the SEC. It's going to be a very offensive lineup for Mississippi State. You're beginning to see that as guys like R.J. Yeager settle in. Kellum Clark gets it going. We continue to talk about, the big three. Well, Cam James actually leads the team in hitting right now, tied with Brad Cumbus. And I think Cam's getting it going. And LT's had some big at-bats here as of late. Lucas, a guy, had a couple doubles last weekend in a game against Georgia. And it's just a matter of time before all the horses start pulling. And once they do, I think this team is going to be even more offensive than they have been to date. So let's take a little time and go back over this Southern game, kind of give you an advanced preview of what is to come. And Pico Cone gets the first start. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's Cone or whatever, but it is Cone. It's not Con, it's Cone. Big, strapping left-hander, and expecting him to win a lot of games. He's actually pitching before he's ready, and does a pretty good job here in this first inning. We get a ground out, a roll out to first. Kind of got deep in the count, got behind 3-0, battled back. We get the out there. Give up a single through the left side, and then Luke Hancock, who was working behind the plate, sees that Smith kind of strays a little bit too far off the bag. We pick him off at first base, and then we get a ground out to get out of the inning. And so not a 1-2-3 inning, but we basically retired the side in order when you factor in the pickoff there. And again, great job by Luke Hancock, and that's his future, right? He's not a first baseman in the minor leagues. He will be a catcher. But, you're playing behind Logan Tanner that's probably a first-rounder. Luke's a guy, too, that doesn't strike out very much. And he's a guy, too, that I think once he gets into minor leagues, he's really going to take off. All right, bottom of one, Mississippi State is scoreless here, but we have some opportunities. Jess Davis flies out to right. Cam James singles to center field and really struck the ball well. Got ahead in the 2-0 count. Called strike, couple foul balls, and then works the count full and lines it back up the box. Luke Hancock walks on 4 pitches. So now we've got runners at first and second. Need to find a way to move these guys around. Well, we don't. And this is one of the only times in this game we couldn't get the key base hit with a runner in scoring position. LT flies out to center field. Cam tags and goes to third, and then Hines pops up to the shortstop. No score after 1 inning to play. Top of second, Mack rips a ball down the third base line for Southern that gives them a leadoff double. And rather than panic, Pico bears down, doesn't allow the runner to really make a serious play for home. We get a strikeout looking, then a strikeout swinging, and then there is we decided to run a pick play at second, and nobody covered. I don't know if it was called from the dugout, called from Luke or whatever, but nobody covered, so Pico turns and throws the ball into center field, and the runner takes third. But we get a fly out to center field the very next pitch, and the inning is over. The side is retired, Bottom of second, this is when State really gets it going. Kellum Clark pops up to second base, one of the few balls he's hit recently that wasn't an absolute, mortar shell somewhere. And then Cumbus singles to right field. And when Brad is really going good, Brad's a dead pull hitter, but he's learning to take that breaking ball away the opposite way. This is what happens here. He singles that ball into right field. Yeager then walks on 5 pitches. Now we've got runners at first and second. We mentioned before getting the big hit with the runner in scoring position. That's what happens here. Leggett actually flies out to center field, and Cumbus takes third on the tag there. And then Jess Davis, our leadoff hitter, and I believe he is probably entrenched in the lineup now. I think he is the guy. He doubles to right center, and 2 runs score on the play. Outstanding effort there. And then Davis takes third on the throw to the plate. So now all of a sudden you've got a guy at third. Need the big hit. Well, Cam James then absolutely pulls a rocket to left to make it a 4-0 ball game. Luke pops up to first, and the inning is over, but it is now 4-0. And again, I go back to that Grand Wayne State game. Every time we had a chance to make something happen, we struggled to get a base runner or to move a runner. And here we are, now into the second time through the order, and we plated 4 runs. Top of third, we kind of gift them a little bit here. One of those things that just didn't quite work out for us, but you get the ground out to first, and then we walk Wiley, the 9-hole hitter, on 4 pitches. I mean, how many times do you see that guy come around and score? The 9-hole hitter is a 9-hole hitter for a reason, and then we don't challenge, and we walk him on 4 pitches, and then next thing you know, there is a double. They hold the runner at third, and I don't know why they didn't just send him. I don't. Makes no sense to me. No clue why they didn't send him. Doesn't burn him, though. Smith comes through with the fly out to left. Everybody tags. Now it's a 4-1 ball game. We come back and get a K. But again, you walk the 9-hole hitter, you're flirting with disaster. All due respect to Molly Hatchet. Bottom of third, State really puts the game away right here. Logan Tanner opens up with a double to left. Really struck that ball well. Hines in singles back up the middle, and there's LT scoring from second to make it a 5-1 game. Kellum Clark then absolutely hits a missile in the right field, makes it 7-1. Cumbus follows with a home run, and then Yeager, a home run. First time since 2009, Mississippi State's gone back-to-back-to-back. That happened against Alabama, as noted on Twitter. But here we go. It's like they enter the game, and there are 3 guys with 6 dingers, and then Clark hits one to give him 7. 2 pitches later, Cumbus hits one to give him 7, and then Yeager hits his 5th. You start getting all the horses pulled, I'm telling you, this could be a dangerous team. Leggett then flies out to short left, and then they finally pull Christian Paul after he has allowed 9 runs. If memory serves me correct, he had allowed 8 runs the entire season. We had 9 in 3 innings. Jess Davison strikes out swinging with Nick Luckett on the mound, and then Cam James walks and still second, and then Luke Hancock grounds out to first unassisted. All right, so we get into the top of 4 here, and Drew Talley comes in, and Drew has been a little bit better as of late. He was a guy that we weren't sure what to expect from him, but the guy's a competitor, and he's had some good outings for us. This was not one of them. However, the first inning of relief, he does a pretty good job here. We give up a double to right center, and then there's a ground out to third. There's a walk, and then we get back-to-back strikes swinging there. So we allow 2 base runners in the inning, but nobody comes around to score. Bottom of 4, State really puts this thing away here. It's already a 9-1 ball game, and the chances of them coming back are very, very slim. And then you got LT double in the left center again, leading off an inning with an extra base hit, automatically putting himself in a scoring position, and we make everybody pay for it. Siebert comes in to run here for LT. Who was the designated hitter, and then goes to third on a wild pitch. Hunter Hines in singles to the right side to score the run and make it 10-1. And then Hines is out trying to steal. Catcher to shortstop there. All right, so you think, okay, the inning's over. Wrong. Kellum Clark then walks, and that's one of the things, too. Discretion's a better part of valor. Even when you're a slugger, sometimes you got to let them walk you. Well, then they walk Cumbus. We pinch run for Cumbus with Matt Corder. And then Yeager flies out to center field. And then it gets crazy. There's a wild pitch here, and we score 2 runs on a wild pitch. It doesn't happen very often. Like we had 2 runs score against us down there at Tulane on a sac fly. We score 2 on a wild pitch. Matt Corder, of course, the trail runner there, does a good job. Now all of a sudden, it is a 12-1 ball game. 12-1. Leg walks. Good at bat there for him. We start moving some guys around, and Braylon Skinner grounds out to first. So it's a 12-1 ball game after 4 innings. There is no mystery left in this game. And, of course, Chris Lemonis is already substituting very liberally here. All right, we have an interesting inning here in the 5th. We bring in some guys, of course, that to get them some playing time. Skinner, of course, and Slade Alford, and Matt Corder, and Davis Match. Forsythe comes in. Immediately, we give a double down the left field line, then a single to right, and then they run the double steal, the kind of the USSSA play where they send the runner from first to second, we throw through, and they take home. It's amazing that happens on the college level. Then there is the single down the right field line from Smith, then Porter doubles down the left field line, and it's like all of it. What is happening? What is happening? And then Mac doubles to the left center. It's a 12-5 ball game. And then so Chris Lemonis walks out there. Chris is not happy. I don't blame him for being unhappy. I know many of you are unhappy with maybe what you saw Chris say. And let me just say this. As a guy that played high school athletics and a guy that coached high school athletics, when I see these comments, I basically, what you're telling me is you haven't done either. Honestly. I can't even begin to tell you some of the things that I heard, as a high school athlete. I had coaches that talked to me like men. They treated me like a man. They expected me to behave like a man. I didn't always do it. But they didn't mince words with me, and sometimes that's what I needed. You ever go out to a high school football practice, when the teachers and administrators aren't around? You'll see a lot of this stuff too. Now, Chris is upset. Got to get your point across. But I don't know why you embarrass a kid. I think, honestly, Drew Talley's a competitor. I suspect to you, Drew is probably more upset about giving up 5 base hits in the inning in a ball game that should have already been over, and then all of a sudden, rather than kind of have a Johnny Holstaff day to get some guys some work, now all of a sudden we got to bring in Brandon Smith to kind of put the fire out. I have no problem with how Chris Lamona's handled himself. I know that Drew Talley is a guy that gets it. I know that he understands he's got to do a better job there. He knows it. Nobody feels worse about that than Drew does. But I see these comments sometimes, and I'll just say I think it's a little soft. I'm just letting you know. We just won an AFL championship, and we didn't win an AFL championship by treating this team like the Boy Scouts. Sometimes you got to put somebody on the understand program. You got to convey the expectations. Hey, it's an 11-run game. We're just trying to get out of here and let you get some work. And all of a sudden we can't locate the breaking ball, and everybody's sitting dead red fastball. And now, instead of being an 11-run game, it's a 7-run game. We bring in Brandon Smith. Brandon gets a strikeout swinging, ground out to second, strikeout swinging. So kind of quell the uprising there, but it really changed the complexion of the game. Not to mention the fact that we had pulled some of our offensive regulars to let some younger guys get some PT. Well, now all of a sudden, you say, well, Steve, it's seven runs. It is. Yeah, but what happens if we can't get outs and all of a sudden, Cam's out of the game and, Kellen Clark's out of the game? You know what I'm saying? It's like you do all these things, with the hope that the game is over. So you got to finish your game here. Bottom of 5, we go 1, 2, 3. Slade Alford strikes out swinging. Hancock grounds out the first, and Luke has grounded out the first a lot this year. Seabrook grounds out the shorts. It's a 1, 2, 3 inning. If I'm Southern, I'm thinking, okay, let's go get some runs here. We can sneak back into this thing. Plenty of game left. Brandon Smith, who I am a fan of, goes 1, 2, 3. We get a strikeout looking, a ground out to first, and a ground out to the catcher on a bunt. It's a 1, 2, 3 inning. And now all of a sudden, the outs are not in favor of Southern. You eat that inning up and you start thinking, all right, let's get things going. Bottom of 6, they changed pitchers again. And we made some good contact here, but we didn't get anything from it. Hines flies out to center. Clark singles to right, takes second on a wild pitch, and then Quarter flies out to center field, and Mesh strikes out swinging. So here we are, not able to expand the lead. And I know it's like, hey, you put these guys in, you're basically, trying to be hospitable and sportsmanlike here, but it's back-to-back innings. We weren't able to put anything across the plate. We bring in Brooks Auger, and another guy I'm a big fan of, and I think he is rapidly becoming a guy that we can depend on. It's a 1, 2, 3 inning for Brooks. Strikeout swinging, fly out to center, very efficient there. That's the thing you look at with all this stuff, and you begin to kind of realize, too, the better part of relief pitching sometimes is pitching the contact and letting the defense work for you, getting soft contact, making them put the ball in play. So you get the K and you get these fly out to center, and all of a sudden you look up and you realize, we're talking an 8, 9 pitch inning here. That'll get it done. Maybe 10 pitches. All right, bottom of 7, they changed pitchers again. And what do? We go 1, 2, 3. Forsythe strikeout looking. Skinner on a very non-competitive at bat strikes out on 3 pitches. And then Slade Alford flies out to right field. 3 consecutive innings. We didn't do anything. Top of 8. Auger back out there. It's a 1, 2, 3 inning, and he strikes out the side. Looking, swinging. Now all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, Brooks Auger's starting to put some good performances together. Maybe he becomes, your late inning guy. Maybe he's your bridge to the end. And is Jackson Fristow becoming the closer? I don't know. Bottom of 8, State getting ready to swing again. We get a chance to put a couple runs up here. And you'd like to be able to get some insurance runs, even though the game is ultimately decided here. But you don't want to, finish out a ball game putting up 4 or 5 zeros. Thankfully, we don't. Luke singles to center to open the inning. Seibert strikes out swinging. Then Luke goes to second on a pass ball. And then Hunter Hines homers. So he ties with Cumbus and Clark with 7 home runs apiece for the team lead. Now it's 14-5. Clark follows with a double to right. They change pitchers again. We get a strikeout swinging, another strikeout swinging to end the inning. The Bulldog reserves didn't do much offensively in this game. And that's the thing, too. When you're competing for a job and you get a chance, you get an at-bat or two, You got to find a way. That's what Jess Davis did. Jess Davis was a late inning replacement. When he got in, he put the baseball in play. Now he's in the starting lineup. Top of 9, we bring in Fristow, who has finally got his velo back. Looks outstanding. I think he had 96 one time on the gun. Strikeout swinging, strikeout looking. Ball game over. Drive home safely. 14-5, Mississippi State, your winners. And so, yeah, some things to like about the game. You look at it and say, hey, it's 14-5 result. You hit a soft toss and lefty all around the yard, which shows that we're learning and able to stay back on that and staying off our front foot. We're able to hit some line drives and, put some pace on the ball. But the reality of it is that, Drew Talley didn't have a great appearance. Didn't. And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you just don't have a good day. You don't have command of that secondary pitch. That was the case for him in the second inning of his stint. And you bring in Brooks Auger, who was outstanding. And Fristow was outstanding. So we have talked about offensive problems earlier in the year. They have clearly been addressed. Can we keep that continuing this weekend? We'll talk about that a little bit more in the show. But you're starting to see this lineup settle and produce. You know what you have starting pitching-wise on the weekends, and now you're beginning to identify some pieces you can trust. I am not moving away from Drew Talley. The guy just had a bad day. And I know it's one of the things that we can't trust that guy, whether it be him or Fristow or whoever. At some point, we've said that about everybody on the staff. Even Landon Sims, when he was a freshman. You tried him out there, and you never knew if he was going to go to the screen or go to the mitt. I mean, there is a development process in place, and you're beginning to see that happen. Now, can we do it on an SEC weekend? Can Brooks Auger go out there and come in relief of somebody after a 6th or 7th inning stint and get us a couple innings and get us home? Yeah, that's the question now. But we're getting there. I don't think there's any question about it. We're beginning to play better baseball, and I still think our best baseball is still to come. I really do, and maybe you agree. Look forward to seeing you guys out at Duty Noble Field this evening. All right, time for our Prime Shrimp Player of the Game. And we've got a lot of options to choose from here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Prime Shrimp. You certainly should be. Prime Shrimp is an outstanding Louisiana company providing quality shrimp direct to your door. They've been peeling shrimp since the 1940s. And here's the best thing about it. You say, Steve, I love some shrimp, but it's just too much trouble. Not with primeshrimp.com. You go to primeshrimp.com, you pick out one of 3 great flavors. Maybe the French Quarter Alfredo is the way to go. I like the Simply Seasoned. I like whatever I've had last, right? You know what I'm saying? But the reality of it is they send you this very well-packaged pouch of shrimp. They're already peeled. They're already deveined. You don't have to worry about any of that. You have to remove the tails. You just boil a bag of water, open up the pouch, drop them in. 10 minutes later, you got Louisiana flavor on your dinner table. Outstanding company. I can't recommend them high enough. And here's the deal. Money back guarantee. If you don't love it, you get your money back. And all orders over 4 pounds ship for free directly to your door. Very well packaged. So if the mailman drops it off in the morning, you don't get home till 5, no worries. Your shrimp is protected and still very much edible. Visit them today at primeshrimp.com and use promo code Boneyard to save yourself a little cash and let them know that we sent you. Risk-free purchase. Absolutely. You'll be glad you did. Again, that's primeshrimp.com. So let's pick our Prime Shrimp Player of the Game. A little more difficult this time. I mean, it really is. We had so many different players that had really good ball games. And so let's look through here, and I think we're going to go with Hunter Hines today as our Prime Shrimp Player of the Game. Hunter Hines kind of quietly having a great year. He could be a freshman All-American. And then you say, well, he's a designated hitter. Well, he's playing a lot at first base in the midweek, and he's your future first baseman. Made an outstanding defensive play. We didn't get the call, but there was a sliding stop that he made behind the bag and then tosses to first, and the guy slides in, and they called him safe. Like to reward the defense there. But Hunter Hines offensively, 3 for 5 on the day, 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored. Outstanding effort. I think we're getting more from him than we expected at this point in his career. I like Hunter Hines, and it's like because of the fact all of a sudden we've had this power surge, we don't talk about him enough. It's like, okay, yeah, well, it's great. Guys, he is a freshman with 7 home runs. Outstanding start to his career at Mississippi State. I think we're going to be looking back at him in a couple of years and saying, you know what, that's a guy we wanted to play late in the ball game. Very excited about him. And again, that's your Prime Shrimp Player of the Game, Hunter Hines. Look forward to seeing what Hunter can do this weekend. Let's get into today's top 10 list, brought to you by closewithblair.com. You guys know Blair. Blair is a friend of mine. He's a friend of yours. And more importantly, he is a friend in the industry. He sent me some information yesterday about how the refi market is beginning to kind of dry up a little bit. And so maybe now's a good time. Maybe you thought, hey, well, listen, I don't know what's going to happen with this. And now it's probably a good time. Not a lot of refis in the pipeline. And a lot of it's because, I think people are just kind of curious to see what's going to happen with the economy. And so maybe maybe you can get into pipeline sooner and go to the closing table, but maybe a lot quicker than you have in the years past. And so if you're looking to buy a home, Blair can help you with that. And the reality of that is, too, is Blair has been in the mortgage business now for 21 years. Top 1% close ratio in the country. That's throughout the industry. That's not just, in Tippah County. I mean, that is the entire nation. Guy worked for Fairway Mortgage, recently voted number 1 in customer satisfaction and mortgage lending origination. Closed the second most loans in the country last year. It's an outstanding deal. So you get the best guy from the best company doing the best job for you. Visit him at closewithblair.com. That's CLOSE with Blair, BLAIR.com, or just call him. I'll give you his number since we're all friends and all. It's 601-500-2344, 601-500-2344. If you're looking to refi, maybe get some equity working for you. Maybe you need to consolidate some debt. Maybe you put it in a pool. Whatever you need to do, you've got some resources there, and Blair can help you untap them for your needs. Be sure and check them out. Again, that's closewithblair.com. All right, let's do top 10 lists. Roy decided, you know what? We've been riding this train for here a couple weeks now, and many of you have reached out, so we're going to listen. I was hesitant to do this list. I really was. I really, really was. And we did the careers cut short by tragedy, and I didn't mention Selena, didn't mention Ronnie Van Zant, so I missed them. I did. I explained to you guys why we didn't have Skinner more prominently mentioned in the list. But and then we decided to go back and do those that were impacted by addiction. Well, today we're doing the suicide list, and I hate to even call it that. But the reality of it is that it's something we need to talk about. I mean, mental illness is a real thing. It is a real thing. And the truth of the matter is, in this day and time, and throughout recorded history, there are more resources available today for people that struggle with depression and mental illness than there ever have been in the history of the world. And so if you're a person that is having these type of thoughts, reach out to somebody. You don't have to struggle alone. And as somebody that fought depression and chemical dependency earlier in my life, I can tell you, when you actually get some help and you're willing to talk to people and be honest, you'd be amazed at the kind of progress you can make and change your life. So again, let me encourage you, if you're one of those people that perhaps have had some negative thoughts, then be sure and reach out to somebody. Let me give you some help here with that. I'm going to take after Katie Babbs, my Twitter friend from Sirius XM Octane. And she always does this at the end of her shift. She will always share the National Suicide Hotline. So if you're one of those people, this is available 24 hours a day in multiple languages. 1-800-273-8255. That is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. 1-800-273-8255. If you can't remember the number, reach out to me. I'm happy to give it to you. Anonymity guaranteed. Guaranteed. All right, so let's get into this. Sadly, really a list in many respects that has some huge names on it and some people that kind of changed the direction of music. We're going to start, though, with number 10, Ian Curtis from Joy Division. You can say, well, Steve, I don't know Joy Division. Well, they were kind of a synth new wave pop band from across the pond there in England, and really one of the pioneers of it. They and Depeche Mode were kind of contemporaries in many respects. And Ian Curtis ended up committing suicide. And so we're going to go with Love Will Tear Us Apart. That's their biggest hit. And what's interesting, too, is after Ian Curtis died, Joy Division elected to change the name of the group. And you're probably familiar with these guys. It's New Order. Yeah, that's right. So New Order kind of rose like a phoenix from the ashes of Joy Division. Number 9, going back several years, and this is a story too. I wish somebody would film a documentary about this. There's so much craziness with this whole. You remember the band Badfinger? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Pete Ham was the lead singer of Badfinger. We're going to go with No Matter What. Is your number 9 song. But Pete Ham was like, Badfinger was kind of funded by the mob. That was the rumors that they had some people with links to organized crime that were kind of funding the band. They were like sponsors of the band. And so as a result, these guys just wanted to go out and tour and, party and that sort of stuff. Well, then there was all this issue about the money. Well, the money was all going to the organized crime syndicate. And so the guys at Badfinger were basically impoverished in many respects. And then Pete Ham allegedly committed suicide. There is some mystery about that, too. There are some people that think that he was essentially murdered and made it look like a suicide because of some of these issues that they had had with the money with Badfinger. And then later, the guitar player for Badfinger ended up killing himself, too. And so a little intrigue and mystery with all of that. I would love to know more about that. Number 8. We haven't talked about this group a lot, and I've had some people ask me to do a top 10. And guys, there's only about 10 songs in their history, but they are one of the most innovative and irreverent bands in the history of the world. They're now defunct. It's the Sex Pistols. So we're going to go with Sid Vicious here, and that Sid and Nancy story is just absolutely atrocious. Sid was one of these people that bought his own hype and tried to live up to a life of hyperbole to kind of match his onstage image. Ultimately became an addict. Murdered his girlfriend, killed himself. It was absolutely awful. But the Sex Pistols, again, Johnny Rotten, those guys just, they changed a lot of things, and they were really in your face. And probably their most controversial song of all time, we're going to talk about it on the show. It was banned by BBC Radio. It's not banned here. It's God Save the Queen. God Save the Queen. And if you go read the lyrics, you can understand why the royal family was probably upset with that. All right, number 7, we're going to step out of the rock realm for a while, and we're going to go country music here. One of the saddest stories that I know on the country music side, it's of Mindy McCready. You guys are probably well aware of her story. Just an incredible artist. Guys do it all the time. We're going to go with that one for her. That's the song, too, where it's like, she goes out partying or whatever, comes home late, and it's like all the same excuses, right? Well, I would have called, but it was so late to call, so I just came home. Didn't mean to wake you, Guys do it all the time, but, it's a double standard for women. And Mindy McCready, very, very talented. Of course, she was linked with Roger Clemens. There was all this controversy about all that stuff. And the father of her child killed himself. And then, the depression of all that eventually just became too much for her to take. And she did the same thing in the same place. And really, really sad story. And, it's like I don't think – I look back and listen to this music sometimes, and I think, it would be a shame not to listen to this music because people died under such difficult circumstances. I don't think you can just write them off and say, no, we're not going to do that. All right, number 6, Brad Delp from Boston. Man, what a sad tale this is. I mean, they all are. There aren't any suicide stories that end as a happy ending, right? I mean, every one of them is a sad story. But Brad Delp from Boston, one of the best vocalists in that time. And the thing that I love about Boston, I've jammed Boston some this week, is how rich the sound is. There are some bands, it just kind of sounds airy. I mean, bands like Boston just filled up the radio. They fill up the speakers. It's such a layered, solid sound. And so we're going to go with Something About You, which is kind of an underappreciated classic from Boston. Brad Delp was a guy, too, and killed himself in this incredibly interesting way, I guess, in some respects. He lit a couple of barbecue grills in his room and sealed the door and died of carbon monoxide poisoning. I mean, it's just incredibly sad. And again, it's this cautionary tale. It's like we think these people are so rich and famous that everything's going well for them. Then you find out, and in some respects, many of these people have kind of made deals with the devil, and eventually it catches up with them. And I mean that metaphorically, not literally. Number 5, Doug Hopkins from the Gin Blossoms. If you have never listened to the New Miserable Experience in its entirety, you owe it to yourself to do that. I love the Gin Blossoms' first album. I don't love the rest of the Gin Blossoms albums because Doug Hopkins is not on them. Now, the second album did have some Doug influence, kind of some leftover stuff they worked on. Doug Hopkins was an absolute musical savant. He was an incredible composer of music, was an incredible lyricist. He was able to process his pain and get it from his heart onto the printed page and eventually into a song. Absolutely phenomenal. As a matter of fact, they're filming a documentary about Doug Hopkins' life, and I can't wait to watch it. But Doug Hopkins was a guy, too, that, he got kicked out of the band. He signed a really bad deal. Doug was an alcoholic. He was a hopeless alcoholic. He was constitutionally incapable of being honest with himself and others. He was a self-saboteur. He did everything he could to kind of get things out there. But I think he was so afraid of failure that he would do things himself to sabotage himself and the band so he would feel some measure of control. And so ultimately, after he'd signed this awful deal and signed all his royalties over to his replacement in the Jim Blossoms, which is awful, he eventually gets his gold record, and that was the biggest goal in his life, and shortly thereafter he shot and killed himself. And so in honor of Doug and Doug's memory, we're going with Found Out About You, which I think is the best Jim Blossom song. Number 4, guy was a worldwide pop music icon. It's Michael Hutchence from NXS. Michael, another guy too, that they don't know if it was an accidental hanging. It depends on who you talk to. I guess some people can't come to grips with all of that. But Michael Hutchence died in a very, very, very sad way. And he was a guy too that lived life with no boundaries in many respects. And an incredibly talented guy. They had amazing hair. New Sensation. That's your number 4 song, New Sensation from NXS. Number 3, I would be remiss, and you guys know that I am not a Nirvana fan, but it would be disingenuous to suggest they did not have a major impact on American music in the early 90s. It didn't last very long, but the 80s rock and metal scene had gotten so bloated, people were eager for something else. And that's when grunge came around. Now, Nirvana, in many respects, has been falsely attributed as the godfathers of grunge. They really weren't. They just kind of rode the wave that was started by others like, Mudhoney and the Melvins, Screaming Trees, Mother Love Bone, of course. And we didn't mention Andy the other day, and we should have. It's a mistake on my part. But to suggest that Nirvana wasn't huge, it's just being dishonest. They were. They were the big band for a short time in that scene. And then for a while there was the Nirvana Pearl Jam rivalry, and that probably skewed my opinion of Nirvana a little bit too. And then Nirvana came out and tried to pick a fight with Guns N' Roses, so it was like the battle of the eras there. But, Kurt Cobain, a very tortured individual, had tried to kill himself before over in Europe, didn't work out, and ultimately shot himself. But the song that started it all for them, and, I know there are a lot of people that are true Nirvana hipsters that kind of reject some of the Nevermind stuff. But you got to go with Smells Like Teen Spirit. That to me, that is the rockin'est song. My favorite Nirvana song, if I have one, is Heart Shaped Box. But you can't mention a list like this without mentioning Kurt Cobain. And there are a lot of fans and people that love them and what they stood for. I just can't figure out what that is. But all that said, Kurt Cobain gone too soon, certainly. Number 2 is Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. And this is one of those ones, too, that I really felt. It's like I knew that Chester had been an addict, and there was all kind of issues with that, and he was a guy in recovery, and hung himself on Chris Cornell's birthday, on what would have been Chris's 53rd birthday. Chris and Chester had become great friends, and they toured together, and because Chris is in recovery, he and Chester kind of bonded over that. And then when we lost Chris, Chester lost Chris, and they were about to perform the Jimmy Fallon show, and you can find this video online on YouTube, and it's very emotional, and I go back and watch it sometimes too. They sing One More Light, which is our number 2 song, One More Light from Linkin Park, but it's the day they found out that Chris had died, and then they get up and sing this song, and Chester can barely make it through. And it just shows the bond between those two individuals. And so you probably know where we're going now. Number 1, Chris Cornell, probably the celebrity death that I felt the most intensely in my entire life. Chris Cornell wrote the soundtrack to my life in recovery in many respects. I discovered Soundgarden in depth when I was in rehab. I had heard of Soundgarden, had never bought an album. And ironically, I had a roommate that was an Ole Miss fan that really kind of turned me on. He goes, dude, you would love these guys. And the next thing you know, I was a Soundgarden freak, and I've been a Chris Cornell fan the rest of my life. And so we're actually going to go with a track off of the Temple of the Dog album today. Could have gone in a lot of different directions here. We're going to go Say Hello to Heaven, which is a song that Chris wrote to his dear friend Andrew Wood after his passing. So there you go. Kind of a depressing list in some respects, to be honest with you. But let's, again, celebrate the lives they led and the music they created that brought us all so much joy. So there you go, your top 10 list. Reach out, let me know if you have ideas for the top 10 list. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. You can find Roy on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC 67. He's older than me, which is why it's 67. He's not 67 yet, but he is older than me. So thanks to Roy and Izzy for all they do to put these lists on Spotify and Apple Music for everybody so we can enjoy them together. I've recently been informed, as you guys have been as well, Iverson Molinar has elected to enter his name into the NBA draft pool. He is not signing with an agent to protect his...
Dish Network knows the importance of having a reliable television provider. That's why Dish puts reliability first with 99% signal reliability anywhere in the country, including rural America. So you can watch your teams, news, and favorite shows without being interrupted, no matter where you live. Get 99% signal reliability with Dish. Call 1-844-CALL-DISH. Visit dish.com or find a retailer near you to sign up today. 99% reliability based on data from set-top boxes.
Eligibility. I think it is important, too, that there's a couple things we should say here. Number one, Iverson Molinar should be celebrated at Mississippi State. Guy's been outstanding for us, has played hard for us, has done his best to carry this team forward. Has been an integral part of our success. As limited as it may be, it hasn't been his fault. If he had complimentary players around him, it might be an NCAA tournament. But Iverson Molinar could elect to come back and play college basketball. We want that to be in maroon and white. We want him to come back and enjoy the college experience here at Mississippi State. He and his family both value education. It's an important aspect in every bit of this. So please, 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 let's not go to social media and make negative comments about Iverson Molinar. Oh, we'll see it. No, we want him back. We absolutely do. And as a matter of fact, if you see that kind of commentary, I would ask that you defend Iverson Molinar because he's not worthy of that criticism. I know how fans can be at times. We take things personally. But Iverson Molinar is a guy that could come back and could be a very, very big part of things for Chris Jans. And he said it in his statement that he liked what Chris Jans had as far as his vision for Mississippi State basketball. So we want Iverson to come back. And so please be supportive on social media. Please, please, please. All right, let's take a look at the Alabama Crimson Tide baseball program. This segment of the show is sponsored by Campus Bookmart. You guys know Stan the Man. I'll be with them tomorrow. I believe that's 10 to 2:30. 12:30, excuse me. Yeah, 10 to 12:30, and then I'll be over at the baseball game. So on your way to the game, swing by Campus Bookmart, and you get signed copies of all 5 of my books. How about that? You come get that handled in person. Get a picture if you want. And there's free hugs with every purchase. I don't know if we can talk to lovely, talented Susie into providing the hugs, but worst case scenario, I will give you the hug if you so desire it. Campus Bookmart, an outstanding place to shop, an outstanding place to work. So many great people there doing such a great job. If you can't make it to town, you can order my books and all the Mississippi State merch that your heart desires at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we're going to save you a little money. Use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. You want something free in life, we're giving it to you. Free shipping. Free shipping from Campus Bookmart on that order over $50. And listen, you're going to save. You're going to be glad you did, because many of you are going to buy a lot of Mississippi State merch. The more you buy, the more you save. All right, let's take a look at Alabama baseball. It has been an interesting year for Alabama baseball. I expect them to be better. I expect them to be better than they have been. So we'll see. I'm a Brad Bohannon fan. I think the guy can really coach. I think he's a great motivator. Started out really good. They got rolling, won their first 5. They sweep a 3-game series in Tuscaloosa against Xavier. They then take down Jacksonville State, and Jacksonville State, a very solid mid-major program. They get by Alabama State, and then they go to Texas. I mean, I commend them for going out and be willing to go, hey, let's go to Austin, Texas and take on number 1. And they did. And they competed down there. They got swept. They lose 1-0, 2-0, 6-1. And that's really kind of the book on Alabama, is that they've had difficulty scoring. But, hey, Texas is a very offensive lineup, and they hold those guys to just 9 runs in 3 games. Very, very, very competitive series. They then lose a midweek game to UT Martin. The Texas thing took a lot of sauce out of them, to say the least. Well, they bounce back. They kind of get it going again. They beat Troy 8-1. Then they sweep a 3-game set against Murray State, 5-1, 6-1, and 5-4. But again, when you see these Alabama scores, they're not scoring a ton of runs. They lose a Wednesday game to North Alabama. Yes, North Alabama. It's a huge, huge loss. That's one that'll sting the RPI all year. Last weekend before they saw us, or 2 weekends ago, before Binghamton came to us, Binghamton went to Tuscaloosa. Alabama sweeps that series 9-3, 14-2, and 5-3. They lose a midweek game in Hattiesburg to Southern Miss. Midweek not been good to Alabama. That disappointment carries over the weekend. They host Florida at their place, and they lose 2 out of 3. Are able to salvage the Sunday game 8-7. 6-4, 13-6 wins for Florida, and then an 8-7 win for Alabama. And then in the midweek, they go to Birmingham and lose again, 5-4 to UAB. So here is the greatest hits here. 13-9 overall, 1-2 in the SEC, 13-4 at home, and then 0-5 away from their place. And you know where this series is going to be played? It's in Starkville. Guys, we need a sweep. We do. If we really want to climb back into this thing, I expect us to win the series, but we need to win all 3 of these. Let's take a quick look at the inside the numbers here at Alabama. Look who's doing well, who's not, all that good stuff. And again, as I say, offensively, not scoring a ton of runs. Not scoring a ton of runs. As a team, they're hitting 296, though. Putting the ball in play, it's not always getting guys around. 113 RBIs on the year and 122 runs scored. Their opponents have scored just 91. And, of course, some of that is about the quality of competition. Tommy Seidel is a guy that is a senior outfielder from them, originally from Massachusetts. That's interesting, right? Hitting 377 on the year, started all 20 games, 7 doubles, 1 home run, 14 RBIs, and 6 of 6 in stolen bases. The guy that gets on base, he's going to do his best to come around. Zane Denton, you may remember him. He is the third baseman last year that ran into Kellum Clark intentionally and got the interference call on Clark. It should have been an obstruction call. I will die on this hill. Do not tweet me with your nonsense. But Zane Denton is a really good baseball player. Hitting 306 for them, started all 22 games for them this year. There at third base. 85 at-bats, which appears to be the team lead. Yeah, 85 at-bats, tied for the team lead. 17 runs, that's also a team high. 26 hits, 7 doubles, and then 7 home runs. Got to be careful with Zane Denton. Got to be careful with him. Outside of that, there's a couple of guys that have some power that can hurt you, but he is a guy that you have to be very, very mindful of. Also has been walked a team high 11 times. He is a big swing and miss guy at times. You can get him with the breaking ball. Struck out 16 times this year. Has not attempted to steal a base. Dominic Temez, catcher for them, junior out of San Antonio, Texas. He is another guy, too, that has been pretty skilled with the bat. 305 this year, 82 at-bats, 25 hits, scored just 5 runs. That's kind of low. 3 doubles and then 2 dingers, 11 RBI for him. Jim Jarvis, familiar with him, are we not? Another infielder there. He's another guy that's kind of a grinded-out guy at the plate. I remember against last year in that series, it seemed like we had a real difficult time getting him out. He really battled us. Started all 22 games, 85 at-bats, tied for the team lead there. 18 hits, which leads the team. 18 runs, which leads the team. And 25 hits, 1 double, 2 triples, 2 dingers, and then the 7 RBI. And he's 4 of 5 in stolen bases, another guy that will run the bases. Owen Diodati, this is a guy last year, had some big swings against us, originally from Canada, Niagara Falls, Ontario. Another outfielder, but they have used him some as a DH as well. And he was a guy last year we had to be awfully careful with. Hit 293 this year, 14 runs, 24 hits, 5 doubles, 6 home runs, and then the 18 RBI. And outside of that, it becomes kind of a by committee approach. But they've got a pretty much a settled lineup. They have 7 of 9 guys that have started 20 or more games, and so there's not a lot of mixing and matching depending on pitching matchups that you'll see. Caden Rose is a guy too that has played extensively for them. They'll kind of move him around a little bit. He's a sophomore at Bob Jones High School there in Madison, Alabama. Guy's played pretty well too. He was a guy last year that people said, hey, we think he's got a really bright future ahead of him, and appears that he does. But this is an Alabama offense at times that, again, has struggled to punch things together. 17 of 20 in stolen bases as a team. They're 19 of 23 against, though. So you get guys on base. You do have the ability to move them around with the stolen base. Alabama doesn't walk a ton, but they are willing to let you walk them. And by and large, again, most of those walks have come against their power hitters, guys that, can hurt you with the bat. Kind of looking at numbers here, we talk about the 13 of the 27 home runs have come from two hitters, and you begin to kind of put the walks together too. About a third of the walks, those same two guys. So kind of feast or famine in some respects. But this is a team that is capable of beating Mississippi State if we help them. And the reality of that is we cannot afford to go out there and give them extra bases and give them extra outs. Now, if we play clean against these guys, I think it's a sweep. I really do. I don't think they have, the bullpen to kind of run with us. I think that we are such a great offensive team in many respects that we can make some things happen against them. Now, let's look at some of the guys that we're going to see. Grayson Hit is a guy that has been really good for them on the SEC weekends for sure. Sophomore out of Germantown, Tennessee. Left-hander, big guy, 6'3", 195. The deepest he has gone in a game this year was against Florida. He went 5 innings, 6 hits, allowed 4 runs. 3 of those earned, just 4 strikeouts. Not a big strikeout guy, even though he had a lot of success against Binghamton. The Bearcats struck out 7 times in 4 innings. But he is a guy that kind of gets you through the order a couple times, and then you get to the bullpen there. But a guy that's done a pretty solid job for them. He has just a 1-0 record on the year, but an ERA of 2.33. 22 strikeouts against 7 walks. So we're basically 3-1 there. And this is a staff too that basically pitches to contact. Not a ton of swing and miss against their starters especially. Garrett McMillan is a guy too, another junior from Tuscaloosa, played at Hillcrest there. Another guy that's pitching pretty well. He goes a little bit deeper in the games, averaging about 6 innings per start. Pitched against Xavier, Texas, Murray State, Binghamton, and then Florida. And Florida got to him in 5 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, and then 7 Ks against 2 walks in that ball game. And again, these guys are going to be around the plate. ERA of 3 flat for him. And he leads the staff in 30 innings pitched, allowed 20 hits and 10 earned runs, 29 Ks to just 6 walks. So, nearly 5-1 there, nearly. And a guy that doesn't give up a ton, I guess you could say, but he does have the propensity to elevate pitches and has allowed a team-high 5 home runs on their staff. They've allowed 26 as a staff. He's allowed 5 of those. Hagan Banks is a guy that we might see, but we're definitely going to see Antoine Jean. Out of Montreal, Quebec, left-hander, 6'1", 180 pounds. Again, decent outings this year, working about 4 or 5 innings a game. Only went 3 1/3 against Florida. Allowed 6 hits, 5 runs. All of them earned 2 walks, 1 strikeout. So again, not a team that's going to get a lot of swing and miss, but they're going to pitch to contact. So, we're going to get some balls around the plate. We're going to have an opportunity to put some balls in play. It should be a warm weekend. Not sure what the wind is going to do. But it should be a chance for us to be rather offensively. And if these things turn into a slugfest, I think we win this thing really kind of going away. I think we have got to make hay this weekend and really climb back into it, especially with a big trip to Fayetteville looming. We can ill afford to really have a losing record after 3 SEC series. So we need to find a way to sweep this one, makes you 4-2 and gives you a little bit of margin heading for Arkansas. And Arkansas is a good team. We're going to have to go up there and play well. It's a tough environment. Many of your players will tell you it is the toughest environment they have played in during their college careers up there in Fayetteville. So this weekend, you got to take care of business. There's no doubt about it. You got to go out there and make some things happen. Looking at this bullpen too, Hunter Hoops, I apologize to the family. He has been outstanding for them this year in relief. A guy that had, you're going to see him at some point. Guy's got, 8 appearances on the year? Yeah, 8 appearances this year. And working in 1 inning stints, allowing about a hit per inning, but just 2 earned runs on the year. 7 walks, 22 Ks. 12 Ks, and then the 1 walk. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's been pretty efficient here. So I'm certain at some point that we will see him. Jacob McNary is a guy, too, that we saw last year. Senior guy out of Athens, Alabama. Could be a midweek starter, could be a long reliever on the weekend. So they've got some pieces, but the bottom line is they don't really have that starter you look at and say, okay, like we saw last weekend with Jonathan Cannon, okay, this guy is really going to limit us. I think these are going to be guys that are going to compete, but I don't think there's a shutdown guy in their order. This is going to be about us. We go up there and be disciplined, put the ball in play clean defensively, we should be able to win this game and win this series. I'm very confident about the weekend. But at the same time, too, I understand it's the SEC and anything can happen. So let's be excited about the opportunities that is to come. But, as a team, defensively, pretty decent, too. 981 as a team. Opponents against them just 979. But, you don't look at this order and say, okay, well, there's a bunch of guys here that make a bunch of mistakes. Drew Williamson leads the team with 3 errors. And that's not a big stretch. You wouldn't take a guy out of lineup for that. But you got a handful of guys that got 1 or 2. But you don't look at somebody and say they're a defensive liability. But, listen, this is a good Alabama team that made the NCAA tournament last year. They understand that, that they get Florida in week 1, the team that's picked to win the SEC, and they get the national champs in week 2. I'm sure they're looking to get a little kind of break in the schedule and probably coming over here thinking, let's just get 1 and stay in this thing. And then once we get against some other teams at our place, maybe we can make our way back into the tournament. Well, we need Alabama to win for us after we beat them because we need that RPI boost. But I'm excited about the weekend. Should be a great weekend for college baseball. Hopefully you guys can turn out and be a part of that. And if you can't, then you should be able to watch every game on the network, the SEC Network Plus. And so if you got a smart TV, you can handle that. And if you don't want to go through all that trouble on Sunday, it'll be on the SEC Network on the television without you having to go use your app and all that kind of stuff. At this point, I think everybody kind of understands how to handle that. But again, an Alabama team capable of coming in here and beating us, but a team that we should beat and we should sweep if we play up to our potential. And the bats stay hot, and that's always a sticky proposition on the weekends because of the fact you're facing better pitching. I don't think this is an Alabama pitching staff, though, that is capable of really coming in here and shutting us down without our help. Simple as that. When they want to walk you, let them walk you. When they give you the opportunity to hit and run, you got to hit and run. Chris doesn't do a ton of that, but this is a team, too. When you've got a catcher like that has allowed some stolen bases, you can put some guys in motion and then put some pressure on the defense, which will enable you to kind of open up some hit and run opportunities. So, but here we go. That's kind of how I feel about it. Let's take some time now and look at the rest of the SEC weekend. The final segment of the show brought to you by your good friends at Portico. You guys know Brooks Bryant. If you don't, you should. What's wrong with you? Brooks Bryant, a guy that's a hero at Mississippi State. Big part of some Omaha teams. Robbed a home run against the University of Washington to send us to Omaha. I like doing business with Bulldogs whenever I can. And if I was moving to Starkville now, I would do business with Brooks Bryant and this great group of developers that are bringing this wonderful residential development to the greater Starkville area. Portico. Very easy to find. You turn off of 82 on the 12, the very first right is Pat Station Road. You cross through that four-way stop, boom, there's Portico. That's your new home. 1.1 miles away from the Mississippi State campus. You've always wanted to live in Starkville. You always wanted to move up here and say, if I was there, I'd love to be close to campus. Well, you're on the quiet side of campus. Close enough for convenience, far enough away to have a little privacy. I love it. You will too. If I was moving to Starkville, I would absolutely move to Portico without question. I would love to be close to the action. Now, whether it's your retirement home, your primary residence, perhaps just your ballgame weekend retreat, Portico's got a place for you. Phase 1 completely sold out. Phase 2 now under construction. And you can have a say in that. You can pick out your lot and pick out your housing plans. And the best way to do that is to contact Brooks Bryant. 601-416-8075. Again, that's 601-416-8075. Brooks Bryant, a guy that believes in Mississippi State and believes in Starkville, wants to make Starkville a better place to live. And I don't know if there are any better places to live, but it's nice to have some new, nice construction here to invite even more families to be a part of our wonderful community here in Starkville. Make Portico your next move. All right, let's take some time now. We didn't do it last Friday with so much going on. We were in the middle of a coaching search. But let's take some time and look at, number one, these SEC series that are coming up. Georgia is at Lexington. This is a big weekend for Kentucky and really Georgia. I think Georgia is a good team. I think they are potentially a really good team. I don't think they're a great team. Now, the one thing that I'll say about them is, number one, you have a Friday night bona fide starter that's going to keep you in those ball games on Friday night, and they play pretty clean defensively. They had the one error on Sunday where they dropped a pop fly on the infield with that high sky out there. But this is big. This is a big weekend. You know, Kentucky is a team, too, that got off to a good start, and I'm really pulling for Nick Mingione, and you should, too. A guy, it's a great story, but also gave a lot to Mississippi State. Kentucky 15-7 on the season, but were swept last weekend. So, you know, Nick and those guys are going to come out and bring their best effort. You know, tough weekend against the Hogs last weekend, but they were competitive for the most part, too. It wasn't like Arkansas just ran over them. Arkansas takes the series 6-2, 9-3, and then 3-1. But so, you know, Kentucky's looking for their first SEC win, and I think they're going to win. I do think Georgia will take the weekend, though. I think Georgia takes a 2-1. I think they win today. Now, Kentucky offensively, a little bit up and down. What happens on Sunday? I think that's kind of the swing game in many respects. I think Georgia probably wins Friday, and I think Kentucky probably wins Sunday. Now, Mississippi State should have won the game on Saturday, and can Kentucky do that? I don't know. But let's pick Georgia 2-1 over Kentucky this weekend in Lexington. LSU is headed to Florida. Now, LSU, and I said this beginning of the year, LSU is going to be great in their ballpark. They're going to struggle on the road. Jay Johnson's one of these launch angle coaches too, where everybody's like all about the home run. Well, that doesn't work everywhere in the SEC. When you play in a softball field like they do at Alex Box Stadium, it's a little different. But A&M takes 2 out of 3 from LSU last weekend. I don't know that many people expected that to happen. 6-4, 11-7, and then 7-6 for the Tigers on Sunday. I mean, you're one swing away from getting swept in your opening series. Probably doesn't, inspire a lot of confidence. But and then LSU was probably thinking, okay, well, we get the 7th team in the West coming in before we go to Florida. That'll be a nice tune-up, and all of a sudden you're 1-2 in the league. And now you got to head to Florida. I like Florida a lot. I do. I don't know that they've played up to potential just yet, but I think they're a team that's capable of winning this league and being a top 8 national seed and really making a run at Omaha. I think most people probably expect that to happen. LSU situation's a little different, though. A lot of people were picking LSU early on, and I did not get the hype. I mean, you lose so much from that team, and you really aren't a great road team in this league, and so we'll see how things progress. But I think this LSU team is certainly capable of making a run and probably getting to a super regional. I don't think they were a top 10 team. I told you guys beginning of the year, and I think that happens. I think they're going to lose again this weekend. Not to say they won't be playing their best baseball later in the year, but I'm going to take Florida in Gainesville 2-1 over LSU. This Florida team is always ripe with pitching, always. And then they've got so many offensive pieces back from a year ago. That was the thing, too. People are like, oh, they had all those guys. They did, and they all came back. That's the thing. I mean, you had a couple of guys that left, but Florida returns a ton of talent. And I think LSU is a team, too, that's probably looking at this weekend thinking, you know what, we could easily be out of the race before we even really get going good. And I think LSU will bring their best effort, and I'm sure they would prefer to play this game at Alex Box. But I think Florida is just simply going to be too good at home. Okay, Vanderbilt, and I don't get the early Vanderbilt love either. They've played pretty well. I give them credit. But now we're getting into SEC play. Now, this is one of those weekends, too, I think Vanderbilt has to be a little bit scared of. There have been times in the past where Vanderbilt will lose a series that they're not expected to. Now, South Carolina has not been good this year. They're the only team, I think, in the SEC that doesn't have a winning record unless they won a midweek game that I missed. But they have not been setting the woods on fire. Vanderbilt opens up the year losing 2 out of 3 to Oklahoma State. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's about right. Well, since that time, they have put together a ton of wins. They have not lost since the opening weekend. They beat Evansville, a 3-game series against Army. They beat Central Arkansas. They take a 4-game set from Hawaii. They sweep Wagner. And you see these names and you think, Steve, they're not playing anybody. And you're absolutely correct. And I see it the same way you do. It's like you look at that record, you think, oh, man. But then you get a little deeper into the schedule and you realize, yeah, I don't know about this. Michigan blows a midweek game against Vanderbilt, 5-4. Michigan had the game won, and there's a walk-off wild pitch. That's happened twice to Vandy here. Remember that against it was Stanford out in Omaha, or no, it wasn't Stanford. It was Arizona. Either way, no, it was Stanford. Yeah, walk-off wild pitch. And then they take 3 from Missouri last week. And so, Vanderbilt has not even really gotten into the meat of their schedule. Put it bluntly, they hadn't played anybody other than Oklahoma State, and they lose 2 out of 3. And Oklahoma State, by my math, is one of the top 15 college baseball programs in the country. And I would submit that, and you look at their history, while they have not had a lot of recent success, Oklahoma State is a very good team, and I think a team this year capable of making it to Omaha. But Missouri loses all 3 of those games. So now all of a sudden, you get the midweek game against Belmont. You win the Thursday night game 10-0. Vandy will sweep this series, and they should. And South Carolina is in a world of trouble because it only gets worse from here. Now, the big series next weekend in Nashville against Tennessee. That's going to be big. We're going to talk about Volunteers here shortly. But I think Vanderbilt takes this series 3-0, and I think South Carolina, it's incredible to see what's happened to South Carolina. It's like when they won the NAFL championship, we were all thinking, well, why not us? If they can win it, so can we. And we did. And then they went back-to-back, and we're thinking, wow, Ray Tanner's building a dynasty. It has not been the same since then. It absolutely has not. And I think that's one of the things that South Carolina fans are so incredibly frustrated with is they got used to being nationally elite, and they're not anymore. And they're not even really contending in the East. Now, that's the thing that I look at is like, it's not just the fact that, Florida has moved ahead of them. Vanderbilt certainly has. And then who would you say right now, outside of maybe Missouri or Kentucky, would South Carolina be favored, to beat in a series? I don't know that they could. That's the thing I look at, and I think about those kind of things all the time. It's like, well, what happens when you lose your positioning, because this is such an unforgiving league. And, of course, when Ray Tanner retired and took over full-time as the AD, he promoted Chad Holbrook. Chad works there for, 5 seasons and never really recaptured the magic. They won 20 games in the SEC just one time in his 5 seasons there. And then after the 17 season, a 35-25 year, and they have a 13-17 record in the league, he's gone. Mark Kingston takes over. They make it to the Super, and everybody thinks, okay, well, we're back on track. Well, then the next year they miss the tournament and have a 500 record and go 8-22. The COVID year, they were 12-4. Never know how that was going to turn out. And then last year, they're 34-23. They make their own regional and get beat in their own regional. And so now it's like we had the one moment when we had Chad Holbrook's players and we kind of got over the hump, and now we're going back, turning in the wrong direction. I submit to you, if Mark Kingston doesn't get back to the tournament this year, there'll be a coaching change in South Carolina. I don't think there's anybody out there that would disagree with that. I think Ray Tanner's a guy, too, that, is a guy that's been a gentleman and a scholar when it's come to college baseball. Got to get this next time right. I don't think there's any question about it. Got to get it done. All right, let's look at this Arkansas-Missouri series. And listen, does anybody expect Missouri to make a run at this thing? Well, no, they don't. And they shouldn't. Again, Arkansas, a team, they're not as good as they were last year. And I know what the record shows, but they, losing Christian Franklin and some of those guys is pretty significant. And they're going to be really good in their own ballpark, as we're going to find out next weekend. But they get the sweep last weekend against Kentucky. But they've got some losses early in the year. They lose to Illinois State early in the year. They lose a Sunday game against Stanford. No shame in that. Stanford, I think, will win the Pac-12. They lose the Friday night game to Southeastern Louisiana. Of course, Southeastern's also beat Ole Miss this year. They're a really solid mid-major program. But since that loss, Arkansas has rattled off here about a dozen wins, including that sweep of Kentucky last weekend. So starting to get the bats going, too. And that's going to be key for those guys. Kind of getting the lineup settled. They will sweep Missouri. I have no doubt about it. We would love for Mizzou to get one. But Missouri at this point has not really shown, a lot to inspire any confidence about, the direction of that program. They're 0-3 in the league and 12-5 overall, but they have not played anybody of significance other than Arkansas, and they've lost those games. Looking at quickly here, Nicholls State, Southern, Louisiana Monroe, Tarleton State, Gonzaga, that was a loss for them, of course. They did drop a game to Nicholls State. They win at Frisco. They win at Arizona State. That's a good Power 5 win, even though Arizona State's an unranked team. But outside of that, there really hadn't been much to speak of. They have kind of gotten fat on some teams that they're just simply able to out-talent, and they're among the least talented teams in the Southeastern Conference. So I expect Arkansas to win this. I don't think there's really much question about it. I think we all probably see it the same way. Arkansas is the better team, should take it. Of course, Alabama's here at Mississippi State. I've told you guys I expect State to win the series. We need a sweep. I don't think there's any question we win the series, but we need a sweep to really climb back into this thing, and I think we're certainly capable of doing that. Auburn is at Texas A&M. I think this could be one of the most intriguing series of the weekend. Now, Auburn, pitching-wise, not outstanding, and you saw that last weekend. Ole Miss was able – and Ole Miss is a very offensive team. They're going to be able to swing the bats. But Auburn is a team, too, that you look at and you say, you know what, on any given day, this team's capable of getting it done. Early in the year, they beat Texas Tech 2-1. They beat Kansas State. And of course, they have the 2 out of 3 series win against Yale. They take 4 from Rhode Island, and you expect all that, right? Well, then they lose 2 out of 3 to Middle Tennessee State. That's not a good weekend. Then they lose 2 out of 3 to Ole Miss, and those games were like church league softball games. Ole Miss wins 13-6 and loses 19-5 and wins 15-2. And then they had to beat South Alabama 13-12. That's the Auburn Tigers I'm talking about. So they are a team that is struggling for pitching a little bit against teams on the schedule as of late. And they had the Kennesaw State game, and they got postponed. And after what Josh Hatcher's been doing as of late, maybe that was good. But A&M, a surprise team. I struggle to pick Auburn to win on the road here. I just don't know if you have the juice. And I think A&M, last year this was one of those series that kind of determined who went to Hoover and who didn't. I think A&M takes it 2-1. But I won't be surprised if Auburn does win it. I think this is a very even-handed series. I think Slosh will have those guys up and ready to go. But I know that Butch will have a good game plan. If they can just go execute it pitching-wise, they've got a chance to win the series. But this is one of the ones, to me, that is among the most intriguing. Now, the big series that everybody's talking about, and rightfully so, is Tennessee at Ole Miss. Now, we'll be covering our games, but I'll be keeping an eye on this one. I think this could be a dandy of a series, and not for maybe the reasons that you do. I am a Tony Vitello fan. I have said that more than once. I know that Tony Vitello will have his guys saying, you know what, you're a bunch of nobodies. Nobody picked you to do anything this year. We're going to go in here and beat these guys. These guys are the number 1 team in the country. Let's go beat them at their place. And I think Ole Miss is a very shaky number 1. I think we all would agree with that. The pitching aspect of this thing is going to be interesting. But let me run these Tennessee scores down for you. Something's got to give. And I don't think it's going to be Tennessee. So 9-0, 10-3, 14-0, 16-1, 27-1, 29-0, 12-2, 4-1. They lose 7-2 at Texas. 10-5, 8-0, 9-8, 10-2, 17-4, 8-3, 12-3, 7-1, 8-3, 5-2, 10-0, 13-3. This is an offensive team going to play in a very offensive ballpark against another offensive team that doesn't have a lot of great pitching. It's going to be awfully interesting. And I think, based on what I know about the Tony Vitello experience, this will be their killing floor type weekend. He will go out there and basically tell them, this is our chance to prove that everybody is wrong about Tennessee baseball. And people forget, Tennessee went to Omaha last year. They were just the first team eliminated. That offensive scheme, that launch angle offense where everybody tries to hit dingers, doesn't work at TD Ameritrade. It doesn't. It doesn't work. You better go out there and hit line drives, and then maybe you catch a day when there is some wind. In Tennessee, that ballpark swallowed them up. Swayze Field will not swallow them up unless it rains. And you kind of understand my point there. I think Tennessee will hit Ole Miss pitching successfully. Now, the flip side of that is Ole Miss, very offensive team too. Those guys can swing it. You got a lot of veteran players back. There's no question about that. We knew that Ole Miss would be a very good team this year. They are. But their pitching is one of the things that's going to hold those guys back. And I think when you look at all this, you think, okay, Ole Miss needs to get these church league softball type ball games because that kind of goes to their strength. They're not a team that's really going to be able to hold you down. And we saw that. I mean, just look Wednesday night, Memphis, they win that game 11-8. And yeah, it's midweek pitching, but it's still, you're struggling to get those guys out. And, let's just go back and look here. Recently we talk about, Ole Miss needs to win and win big. They opened up the season with an incredible winning streak, and then they lose game 2 to Central Florida, 1-0. 1-0. You think Central Florida's stacked with a bunch of pitchers? I mean, probably did their best guy on Friday. Ole Miss won that game 8-7. And then finally, Ole Miss breaks through and wins on Sunday 9-1. Then they're beating up on Oral Roberts, and then they get to game 3 and they lose to Oral Roberts 8-4. The next game, they lose to Southeastern Louisiana 5-1. So, for a team that is supposed to be so potent offensively, you shouldn't be losing those games by those scores. It's one thing to lose them, but to be held to 1 run in Hammond, Louisiana, that's tough. And of course, we talked about the Auburn series, but this is going to be a very entertaining series. I am picking Tennessee to win 2 out of 3 in Oxford, and I think it would be an awful lot of fun. I think that Sunday game will be like watching a church league softball game that goes down to the final at bat. I just think when you look at Ole Miss's pitching, though, they have not seen an offense quite as potent as what they're going to see from Tennessee, and I think it will be some very, very wild ball games. And the good thing is these games are going to be a little bit later, I guess. If you want to DVR them, SEC Network will carry the Saturday game. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. But I like the matchup, and I do think that Ole Miss is a team too that we talk about heavy as the head that wears the crown. I mean, last week, let me just see here. Let me just look here as we get into their record last week. The week before, I guess it was, they went 2-2 last week. They lose a midweek game, and then they win the weekend against Auburn on the road, and they're able to maintain number 1. If I'm voting number 1, you can't be 2-2. You can't be 2-2. Do you think losing to Southeastern Louisiana is less painful than losing to Auburn? Of course not. And so I kind of question the voters there a little bit on that one. But again, Ole Miss, a very, very good team. And this should be a very entertaining series. I wish we could watch all this. That's the thing. I guess we could go back and watch it in review. But it's going to be an incredibly entertaining weekend in the Southeastern Conference. And a lot of people's eyes are going to be on Oxford, Mississippi. What we have to do is take care of ourselves, take care of our business, and get out there and take care of Alabama. And I believe that we will. And I'm eager to see how this weekend shakes out. I know you guys are as well. And, what's going to happen around the league is that, we'll have a picture kind of come into place. The good thing for us is when you look at the SEC standings is there's only 3 undefeated teams in the league. So everybody has a loss or 2 with the exception of Arkansas, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. And, Tennessee and Ole Miss this weekend, again, I think that's a split. Vandy will, jump ahead 6-0 after this weekend, and I think Arkansas will be right there with them. And then people will see them as the SEC frontrunners, and maybe deservedly so. But Florida is a team that will probably win their series 2-1 and be 4-2. But eventually, they will play Florida. They will play Vanderbilt. They will have an opportunity to play Tennessee. So you get a chance to kind of legitimize yourself. But I think if you're one of these teams like South Carolina, you begin to look at this and you start thinking, man, we are really, really in bad shape. We hadn't won a game yet, and we're 10-11 now overall in the schedule. And so you're going to see the front runners, and then there's going to be the pack. And I suspect that we're going to be in the pack until we get a chance to kind of stack up some wins. And I think that has to start this weekend, because I think that Arkansas series is going to be tough for us. I'd love to go up there and win the series, but how can you have any confidence in saying, hey, we're going to go win that series after the way they've played and how we've played, and the fact that recent history, we have not had any success in that ballpark. And so if you're in that neck of the woods, let me encourage you to make plans to come. I would probably buy my tickets on StubHub or somewhere like that so I could sit in the chairbacks. I would not want to sit in a hog pen and wear maroon. I don't know that would be a good experience. They're not quite as hospitable as we are out in the left field lounge. We're happy to have you come. It gets kind of tough out there for some of our fans in the hog pen. And if you're willing to deal with it, then come on out there and be a part of it. But it's going to be a great baseball weekend when we get there. But first things first, let's take care of Alabama. All right, before we get out of here, let me remind you guys, too, that there's a lot going on, with Mississippi State basketball on both sides. And I know that, now that all that is over, we get through the coaching searches, and it's easy to say, okay, well, now I don't have to worry about this. There's going to be some recruiting stuff, and, Paul Jones is going to keep everybody up to date on the transfer portal stuff. All of that is something that you should be mindful of. But, it's baseball season now for us. But the NCAA tournament, on the men's side especially, really gets me excited about our future. But watching Chris Jans, coach his team to win over UConn and nearly beat Arkansas. And, of course, Arkansas wins their game last night. It's pretty impressive when you begin to look and see what Musselman has done there to Arkansas. But it makes me envious, right? I mean, are you like me? It's like I see our contemporaries in the SEC having some level of success, and I begin to think, why can't that be us? Why can't we get back to that? And I've got a lot of confidence in Chris Jans. I really do. And, when we hired Ben Howland, I thought, oh, man, here we go. Here we go. It's Ben Howland. The guy won 3 straight Final Fours. It's a guy that's won everywhere. And so, we're not there. We had to make a coaching change. But, Arkansas knocks off Gonzaga last night. And now you start thinking, well, goodness gracious. I mean, they've got a chance there, a win away from the Final Four. They got to go through Duke to get there. But, how exciting is all of this? To watch all this happen. Duke takes down Texas Tech last night. But that's going to be an incredible regional final between those two. Pretty incredible. And I think Duke got a little bit of a cakewalk. But, you could look at Arkansas, too, and say, hey, who have they really played? Well, they played Chris Jans, New Mexico State. But, they struggled against the number 13 seed Vermont. They struggled against the 12 seed New Mexico State. Now you got Duke. After taking down, Gonzaga, the number 1 seed. Pretty awesome to see. But it'll be interesting. Tip of the cap to Musselman and his crew. And, of course, you look at the other side of the bracket, from them. Of course, we got games going on today. But, Houston. Houston now going to play Villanova, in a regional final. Pretty incredible. Villanova knocks off Michigan. A lot of people were rooting against Michigan. The last team in the tournament, they end up in a Sweet 16 after the craziness that happened with Juwan Howard. Pretty great. And, of course, the other Sweet 16 games will happen today or this evening. North Carolina and UCLA, battle of blue bloods there. Purdue and St. Peter's, I think everybody in the country is pulling for St. Peter's. I think the train may end today, but, man, it's always great to have that one team, right? You always want to go out and buy their merch just because you want to support them because they add some magic to March Madness. Miami and Iowa State, that could be awfully interesting. See what happens there. And Kansas and Providence. Is Kansas the team now? Is Kansas the one you look at and say, you know what, they're going to win an national championship? And I love the mystery of all this, but I look forward to a day when we can fill out our name in a bracket and hope to get out of the first weekend. And kind of everything beyond that is a bonus, right? But it's been forever and a day since we've been able to hang a Sweet 16 banner, and we've only got a couple of those in our history. But the bottom line is when I watch all these teams, it makes me a little bit jealous, especially when we split with Arkansas and we should have swept Arkansas. And you look at it and say, look, now they're a win away from the Final Four. What that tells me is we're really not that far off from being a competitive NCAA tournament team. We're really not that far off. And I think we've got the coach now to put us over the edge. But enjoy what's left of the tournament. It's going to be a busy weekend. And then, of course, there's one more weekend left. And then it's just baseball season. Spring practice has started for football. I had to miss yesterday. I'll be out there tomorrow for a while. I'll have a chance to watch that. So I'll have some notes for you guys on Monday. We got a lot of guys that are out, with some injuries and guys who are recovering from surgery. So when you see these depth charts, and Paul Jones keeps up with that rather meticulously for us over at genespage.com, you'll see some names like, hey, what's going on with so-and-so? And there's a good chance they're just not available, like Cole Smith, Dollar Bill Johnson, not participating in team drills due to recovering from off-season surgery. So it doesn't mean they've left the program or they've lost favor with the staff. Spring is about getting reps and kind of getting guys ready to go. So Monday I'll have some football content for you guys too, and we'll recap the weekend that was at Duty Noble Field. Let's be sure and go check it out. And again, as always, if you're looking for books, go to dogpiletobook.com. Every time I go speak, somebody says, hey, where can I get one of those Stark Villain shirts or Stark Villain hoodies? Very easy, starkvillains.com. You can get that ordered, and they'll ship it right out to you. If you got any questions, let me know. Happy to help. But I'm excited about the weekend. I'm excited about, basketball. There's a lot to feel good about. Spring football is here, too. And listen, we need a big year this year. We do. I'm not saying we got to go out there and, win the Sugar Bowl or anything, but, we need to take a step forward this year. This is an important spring for us. And I look forward to getting out there and seeing the team on Saturday. Look forward to being back with you guys on Monday. I hope you guys have a great weekend with your friends and family. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
Dish Network knows the importance of having a reliable television provider. That's why Dish puts reliability first with 99% signal reliability anywhere in the country, including rural America. So you can watch your teams, news, and favorite shows without being interrupted, no matter where you live. Get 99% signal reliability with Dish. Call 1-844-CALL-DISH. Visit dish.com or find a retailer near you to sign up today. 99% reliability based on data from set-top boxes.